I've been a volunteer of the Women's Foundation for 6 years, and this is my first time being up here on stage, and I must say, what an amazing view. Thank you, everyone, for being here today to support women and to support everyone, and most of all today, to support creativity. So, this is March, and we are officially stepping into Art Month. And what everybody thinks about is the amazing parties, the fabulous crowds, Art Basel, Art Central, all of the fabulous exhibitions that's going on. What are we thinking about for women artists? We are thinking about, despite the fact that Hong Kong is an international art hub, women in the arts are still massively underrepresented. Just to get you started with some statistics, a study from ArtNet auction database revealed that women only make up 5% of the total number of artists in the auction market. And this is a study that took place between 2000 and 2017. Also, another study by the International Galleries in Hong Kong have shown that the greatest gender disparity is represented by only seeing 17% of women artists having solo shows around the world. Can I talk louder? Yes, I'm gonna try. Mario's instructing me. But the tides are turning, as you will know, because our esteemed panelists today will tell you how gender equality has evolved alongside the arts. And with that, I'm delighted to introduce our panel of leading women in the arts in Hong Kong. Let's give them a big round of applause. So it's like having a conversation with friends because I used to be an arts editor, so I know all of you from the past. So Suhanya is the executive director of M+, which is set to become Hong Kong's new Museum of Visual Culture and part of the West Kowloon Cultural District. She has over 30 years of experience as a museum manager and curator, and previously was a deputy director of Art Gallery of New South Wales. She's also a member of the board of the International Committee of Museums and Collections for Modern Art. In the middle is a Hong Kong girl, Whitney Ferrare. And Whitney used to work at galleries all over Hong Kong, and she worked at auction houses, but she also had a very brief stint as an arts writer for Time Out magazine. And now she's currently the senior director of Pace Gallery, which has outposts in New York, London, Beijing, Hong Kong, Palo Alto, Seoul, and Geneva. And she's also working closely with Future Pace, an international cultural partnership focusing on multidisciplinary projects for arts in public spaces. And on my far left, we have Annysa, who actually came all the way from New York to be with us today. Hi, Annysa. So also a Hong Kong girl. She is currently based in New York and is the co-founder of Tomato Gray, a multimedia artist collective that promotes Chinese art to American audience. And she launched her first solo show in New York in 2005, and she is exhibited internationally and has won numerous awards, including one of the top talents to watch in London Times. So without further delay, I'm gonna move this along because I'm sure you wanna hear all about their stories and their aspirations. So I'm gonna start with Suhanya. So as the director of M+ Museum, all eyes are on you. And we had a conversation earlier on about how it's amazing that so many women are now being represented internationally on boards and museum curators. How do you feel about that tide of change, and what are you doing right now as a woman curator of M+, a brand new institution?
Thank you, Desiree. I just want to begin by acknowledging the Women's Foundation for putting this issue on the agenda for the panel this morning. It's such an important issue because culture is what keeps us all alive. Imagine a world with no films, no art, no books, dead. So that's why all of us are in this field. So thank you, Women's Foundation, for putting this really significant issue on the agenda. Museums today, yes, unequal in terms of leadership and gender parity, but improving. I have to say, in Plus, we are building a museum of the scale of the Tate Modern in Britain with their new expansion, the Museum of Modern Art in New York, the Pompidou in Paris, and I am a woman museum director. It's great to be sitting on this seat, and I thank those men who interviewed me and put me here. But most importantly, also to recognize that now at the Tate Modern there is museum director of the Tate Modern who is a woman. The museum director of Tate Liverpool is a woman, and the director of all of Tate is also a woman. So things are changing. It is not equal, but it's certainly changing. And all of us sitting in these positions, we think about how to act that change, and it needs to be an active work. So what have I done since I've started at the museum 2 years ago now? I've worked very closely with my board chair, M+ board chair, Victor Lowe, to make sure that there is parity on the board. And for the first time, it is that. We have a board at M+ that has half women and half men. It's fantastic. And those women that sit on that board are equal and are there because they bring in the skills that we need on a board like that. So it's about merit and recognition of that merit. In terms of the museums, our executive, the half of us are women, 2 men. Senior leadership, 75% women. So it's already changing. And I have to say that in terms of cultural industry, the advocacy and active voice of women have always been there. We just need to listen.
Great. I'm going to give you maybe one more, a little bit personal question. As a curator, how do you hope to change the programs and the artists and the acquisitions in terms of gender equality? What can you push personally?
Good question. Venice Biennale, Hong Kong Pavilion. M+ has been involved for 4 years now. This is our 4th time that we're working in collaboration with the Hong Kong Arts Development Council. The last 3 times had 3 brilliant Hong Kong male artists, but this 4th time we have Shirley Tsai, a brilliant female artist. So programming is about being alert, active, and saying, no, it is time to shift that. So that is a first example. In relation to collections, this is definitely a challenge for all museums, and it is a global issue of parity and history and art history, and we need to change that. And again, another example, working very closely with Asian Art Archive, who initiated, and we've partnered with an annual Asian Wikipedia Wikathon, where we meet once a year and during Art Basel to change on Wikipedia the gender balance. We research as a museum, we need to make that research available, so we start by going online and adding women artists online. So we also need to change those bottom lines, and we do it slow, but it's committed and ongoing work. And that research will cascade into collection and programming.
Fantastic. I'm going to shimmy over to Whitney, who I know for many years, and I've just basically seen her advocate herself, her artist, and all the things that go with the commercial world, which is a tough world. As a senior director of Pace Gallery, how do you actually balance the need for having commercial success as well as being able to promote female artists? And speaking about collectors, who you deal with a lot too, how do you change their view about collection?
Thank you, Des. Well, that's a very tough act to follow. Suhanya is a tough act to follow, and Hong Kong is very lucky to have people like her, Desiree, Annysa, Claire Sue, Asia Art Archive, and so forth, and many other countless women that are actively participating and building the wonderful arts infrastructure and cultural industry that we have in Hong Kong. I suppose I'm the commercial figure on the panel here today. Hong Kong, when I started, was a very small drop in the art world ocean. And it was dominated by London and New York and those traditional art capitals. And in that period of time, I've seen Hong Kong has now grown to be the 3rd largest art market in the world, if you include parts of China. But that's staggering. It's about a $70 billion industry per year. So gone are the days where you have this misconception of the small gallery girl a la Charlotte York in Sex and the City, traipsing around trying to find Mr. Right. But we can still dress the part, right? It's a Vogue, I suppose Desiree is moderating today. But when I personally started in the art world, I have to thank my dad, actually, because he really suggested to me, he said, you know, I think this could be an interesting industry for you. And he gave me a book, the biography of the first female gallerist. Name was first commercial gallery in Greenwich Village, I should say that, in 1926. Her name was Edith Halpert. And this was an era of time where women were meant to stay at home. This was pre-World War II. And Edith was out there, dog eat dog, fighting for her artists and pushing their work and supporting them. And really, at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do in our world here, whether it's on the commercial side or the institutional side. We're all working together to support artists. And this is the legacy that we leave behind. So it has to be all-encompassing, and my own personal day-to-day life has been really just being conscious about whose work you're putting forth. And just, I think that the gallery I work for has a tremendously diverse program, and not just female artists, but artists of color, and recommending them to people. So not just having diversity at the top of who own the galleries, the senior management of those galleries, but also your female collectors. So that's a very important angle that I don't think people touch upon. You look at the statistics, the auction records, the representation in institutions, but actually research shows that when you encourage and support those female collectors, they're incredibly powerful. If you look at Netflix, they're now amending and incorporating female, let's say, demographic material to support that 53% of their viewing audience is women. If you look at the number of people that attend shows, and some, you know, these numbers are staggering, how can you deny the significance of female collectors?
Absolutely, totally agree with you. I just want to follow up with another question regarding female collectors. Obviously, we're also thinking about, you know, the valuation of art and, you know, the way that people chooses to buy art. How do you feel that, you know, with female artists being currently undervalued, and what factors do you think plays into this disparity at times for women artists?
Oh gosh, too many factors. Probably one is a word I read often in the TWF material is an unconscious bias. If you're a white senior male director in a gallery, you tend to work with white male artists, you work with white male collectors and so forth, and that whole cycle is then perpetuated. But also what concerns me is the rise of, and speaking to a predominantly financial service audience here, the rise of financial terminology in which you ascribe value to art is deeply concerning to me. And it's important to emphasize the qualitative value of art. And unfortunately, with exorbitant rents in Hong Kong, the auction industry playing a huge role in how people are introduced to art, I think all perpetuates the lack of visibility that women have on that market commercial level, Desiree. So it's about giving them a voice, giving them a space, and having and nurturing people to collect their work, and just being conscious of that. So the last studio that I visited was Michal Rovner in Tel Aviv, and she's just been the subject of a major commission in London by the City of London at the London Crossrail, and our Art Basel show in Hong Kong will be Mary Corse. And Mary has just had a retrospective at the Whitney Museum, and then after Pace, she'll have a show at LACMA. So we are definitely playing our part, and you just have to have that, bear that in mind in your day-to-day life as a gallerist. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm going to move over to Annysa, who's actually on the front line as a creative. We were speaking earlier, and she told me about how she got her start actually through the generosity of women curator and women gallerists. Annysa, can you tell us a little bit more about that and how it helped you as a women artist?
Yes, actually, in fact, I was quite lucky. I was given chances by women curator and galleries. In 2005, after I studied at the Kunst Academy in Germany, I went to New York without knowing how to get a show. Art school usually doesn't teach you about that. And I borrowed a book, Marketing for Artists, from the public libraries. I followed some steps, from the book. Some worked, some didn't. While in New York, there are some non-profit online art platforms where artists can upload our portfolios. So I post my artwork and information on artistspace.org. And like a month later, a curator from the Miami Art Center contacted me. She asked me to send free work to the Art Center for a group show she curated. And that was my first chance to show my work in US. And during the exhibitions, a woman saw my work and she contacted me after she returned to New York. I invited her to my apartment to show her more of my work. At that time, I don't have a workspace. I pinned up my drawing on my refrigerator with magnets. And it turned out that woman had studios in Chelsea, and she gave me my first solo show in New York at the end of the year at her gallery. There's some recent data showing that female-run galleries are more likely to show women artists. So today, I see a very positive beginning for this year. And another woman I would like to mention who helped me a lot. She was my professor at the Kunst Academy, Professor Marianne Eigenher. She was a Swiss artist born in 1945. She told me when she was young she wanted to become a music composer, but it was impossible at her time. Later, she turned her attention to drawing and paintings. She knew how hard to be a woman artist and how hard to balance being a working artist, an academic, and a mother. She shared all her experience with us, and she kept giving me support, even though after I left school. So I am greatly benefited from the idea of women helping women.
That's fantastic. We've talked about a lot of what it's like now, but I'm going to send maybe one last question. I know we're short of time, to Suhanya. How do you see this going in the next 10 years?
I'm expecting it to change a lot, because I think as we all become more alive to the issue and we start advocating, it is a wave, it is the bicycle that we heard about earlier this afternoon. I expect a change. I can see that there has already been a change if you look 5 years ago to now. So the future has to be better, because we will all work to do that. And that's what I would urge everyone in this room to consciously work towards making it better, because it will be better. And it will be better because women bring points of view that are essential and important. They are different, and that difference is a very positive thing.
Thank you so much. And with that, I think we're going to have to give the floor back to Rita, who's going to share with us some community updates. I want to thank all of you for your time, and I want to thank all of these wonderful ladies for being here today. And I certainly hope that Vogue can continue to support women artists and give them a voice, because that is very, very much to me in Vogue. Thank you.
Thank you.